welcome to this UniCourse video. My name is Ashley. The topic of today's session is quality management. Now, the main aim of today's session is for us to be able to provide you with an introduction into quality management in the workplace. So just a general introduction to develop some basic knowledge and understanding of quality and what it means within an organisation. So we will start with a couple of definitions, okay? So firstly, what is quality management? So today we see the term quality used everywhere really in business, specifically in sales and marketing, and in general, quality refers to the sum of products and their traits and characteristics that can influence its ability to meet specific criteria. So everything organisations do to ensure that a service or a product is produced and delivered on time and within budget is part of quality management. So organisations manage quality, quality processes and systems and approaches in many different ways. The measures for success can be completely different from one organisation to another. What may work for one organisation might not work for another organisation. So what is quality management? Quality is about managing tasks and activities that need to be completed to maintain a degree of perfection. But what is perfection? And we're going to be looking at that in a bit more detail throughout this session. But the British Standards Institution created a definition back in 1991, and I still believe it's quite relevant today. So I've noted down here the totality of features and characteristics that bear on the ability of a product or service to satisfy a given need. So think about that, to satisfy a given need. So understanding what that need is quite important, and that leads us on to as well the difference between quality assurance and quality control. Now, some might believe that quality assurance and quality control are the same things, but they're not, and it's important to be able to differentiate between the different two terms. So quality assurance is dedicated to ensuring the necessary procedures, processes and controls are in place to produce results which comply with, a specific standard or standards or regulations. So audits of business records and interviews conducted by internal or external parties measure the success of the quality assurance program, really. So where these audits identify non-conformance to the standards, changes need to be made. That might be in the training and procedures, and it might even be in relation to the whole process of the compliance in that area. So within the framework of quality assurance, establishing the standard is critical. Each standard must be specific to the product or service to reflect the ultimate goal of that product or service. If the standard does not accurately reflect the expectation of the business unit, management, and the ultimate customer, the benefit of quality assurance is undermined. So the customer's need really comes first, and then the organisational need follows on from that. So how does that differ then? So unlike quality assurance and how it's focused on processes, quality control concerns the quality of in-process or finished products. So the tools of those responsible for executing quality control, they can include high precision measuring devices and customer satisfaction surveys, things like that. So quality control does not prevent errors. Quality control is responsible for identifying deviations from the acceptance standards before the service or product is released to the next step in the work process. And that could be relating to the internal customer, or if thinking about the end user, it will be the external customer. After the deviation is found, quality control documents the non-conformance. It is then the responsibility of the management or the leadership team to determine how to resolve that identified error. And that could be by, reworking it or changing a process. It could be, or a procedure. It could be repairing it. It could be scrapping it altogether and completely thinking of a new idea. The results of quality control inspections are fed back into quality assurance programs to identify process improvements that can minimise future work errors. So they do interlink, but there is a key difference between them both. So please, please, please bear that in mind when you're looking at quality processes and systems within your workplace. Now, what we're going to talk about now is why it's important to organisations. Why is quality management important? And I want to focus on a couple of different areas here. So first, I just want to point to this. So the Japan Institute, Japan's basically, the father of quality management systems, and we're going to talk about it more in depth a bit further on. But he made the statement that quality management is about creating a global community of practice to empower organisations and people to push beyond their limits. So, I think they're really strong, these words. It's about pushing beyond your limits by, by sharing information with everyone around us to consistently improve and work towards perfection. Because most of the time, organisations don't have perfect products, especially at the start. It's about understanding how to get to a decent quality of product or service. So why is quality management important in business? So firstly, product and service consistency can be improved by quality management. Organisations need to plan, create and execute products and services for their target market. The organisation should undergo continual market research to ensure that consistency. Secondly, efficiency and effectiveness. It can be improved by streamlining processes and systems to eliminate wasted time and effort. It's important here to consider the employees. The question to ask is, are you getting the most out of your employees? Is there room for improvement? Is there measures in place to check performance and training needs? And then, when we think about customers and customer satisfaction, today more than ever, consumers are more demanding because, because of that, it's essential to meet and, hopefully every single time exceed expectations to meet and to meet them and to make sure that you stand out. Consistently monitoring customer feedback will allow you to understand them needs, wants and expectations to be able to then make improvements wherever is needed. So when you think about, how can quality management improve or maintain competitive advantage, quality management can assist in maintaining it and, can sometimes take you more on top to stay competitive. Providing products, services that are at the highest standard is key to having, it's key to having them loyal customers always come back. And having a stringent quality management system can provide insightful information and recommendations for doing things correctly. High quality standards can improve your brand recognition and put you ahead of your competitors. So the next one, reduce risks through quality management. So another factor that should be considered is quality standards. Most risks happen during, per, or post-sale or post-sales operations, you know, or even like product when you're manufacturing the product or the product's manufacturing process. So it's important to understand that quality management is really, really vital in these two areas to help eliminate risk or control the risk if needs be. And then finally, managing quality, it can increase profit. Consider how we work, and today more than ever, it's a dynamic, competitive market and industry, and it is fast paced, and having a transparent quality management process that links with performance management is a good way to ensure organisations' goals and objectives are met, and that that they streamline in that strategy in order to work towards the vision of where the organisation sees itself being and what success looks like. So that in turn maximises the organisation's cost efficiency by maximising resource usage. So why is it important? Because it really, really is to the success of an organisation. So I'm going to touch upon a couple of different important theories, models and theorists. And firstly, we're going to look at William Deming. Now, William Deming was a leading management thinker in the fields of quality management, and he himself placed great importance and responsibility on management at both the individual and the company level, believing management to be responsible for 94% of quality problems. He put together a 14-point plan, and in his philosophy of management, he believed that they can be applied to small or large organisations in the public, private, or any of the service sectors. His 14-point plan is a complete philosophy of management that can be applied to small, large organisations in the public, private, or service sectors. And there will be details in an additional resource on Moodle relating to that. But basically, he believed the adoption of and action on the 14 points was a signal that management intended to stay in business. He also encouraged a systematic problem-solving approach, and this is recognised worldwide really, and it's used quite a lot in self-development. It's used quite a lot in in teaching practice. It's used quite a lot in project management, and it's about planning to identify an opportunity for change. So thinking about how and how you can improve and where you maybe need to, and then actually doing so, implementing the change on a small scale, and then checking using data and evaluating and analysing results to determine whether it's made an impact, and then acting. So if it was successful, implementing on a wider scale, and continuously assess the outcome to see whether it's being justified. So Deming's cycle is, it's really relevant in the area of quality management, because you're always looking at planning, doing, checking, acting, planning, and it can be a continuous cycle of always measuring the standard really, and you can use it in the check bit to measure against specific standards or regulations or laws, legislations, or anything that's relevant to your industry really. So next we have Duran. Now, there's a lot that can be said about Duran, and he is considered by many the father of quality management techniques. So, yeah, if you do look up quality management, he will probably be the first name that pops up. Basically, quality management systems, as we now think of them, first started to be developed in the 1920s. So, statistical sampling techniques were introduced into quality control methodology, and they were pioneered by someone called Shewhart. Now, he is sometimes referred to as the father of statistical quality control. But in simple terms, during this period, an ever increasing demand for greater and greater productivity saw a breakdown in quality control. And it was clear that there was a requirement to develop a more robust, structured, and logical approach to quality. And more importantly, it would involve a shift from simple end product inspection to the development of a range of quality practices aimed at actively preventing defects by implementing checks and controls earlier on in the production process. So Duran was, key to this development, and Dr. Duran's reputation in the field of quality management, it spread not just nationally but worldwide. And in the 1950s, he actually went to go and work and be a consultant in Japan, and you know it's steeped in history, his impact in the Japanese economical industry and environment of that time. But we're going to look at the Duran's trilogy here. So it's broken down into 3 sections, okay? So firstly, if you look at the quality planning, so the quality by design, and then quality control. So it's about the process controls and the regulatory requirements here, and quality improvement, which could look at, Lean Six Sigma. So as you can see by this diagram, the Duran trilogy is often presented as a graph with time on the horizontal axis and cost of poor quality on the vertical axis. So I really like this diagram because I think that it's a good visual. So you can't see it, just zoom in a little bit more, and it breaks down what it is about. And in addition to many decades of work on quality management and consulting with organisations worldwide, Duran founded the Duran Institute, and I gave you a quote earlier on, didn't I, from them? But that quote was basically their mission to create a global community of practice, to empower organisations and people to push beyond their limits. And it's still operating today. The Institute, remains focused on equipping organisations with the tools that they need to achieve long-term solutions to everyday problems. So let's move on to total quality management. Now, you may have heard the term total quality management in the past, and went, okay, well, that means that everything is totally as structured and as perfect as it possibly could be. That's not really what it's about. So I've broken down what the words actually mean. So total means made up of the whole. And then you've got quality, which means degree of excellence in a product or a service. And then you've got management, which is the act or the art all manner of planning, controlling, and directing. So putting it all together, TQM is the art of managing the whole to achieve excellence. And when you're thinking about total quality management, it's really, really important to not just think that you could have one department focusing on it in the workplace. It's about a whole organisational thought process, and it's there's three aspects to consider. The accountant looks at the tools, the techniques, maybe the training, and it might be looking at analysing statistics, understanding and solving specific problems, and creating some sort of quality assurance and quality control process to work through it. But the main focus is the customers. So they are the driving force for what total quality management stands for. And it's important to always keep them, in focus when creating any sort of quality management process. And then the culture, as I just mentioned then, it's shared values and belief, and it's important to that they're expressed from the top down and from down up as well. Quality needs to be supported. It needs to be supported not just by the people but by the processes, the systems, and should all link right the way back up to the values of the organisation, the goals, the objectives, and everything that's leading to the organisation achieving its vision. So the principles of total quality management are, it needs to be broken down. Think about what the approach is going to be. Think about the scope. It is company wide. It's got to be. Everybody's got to be on the same page. The scale, thinking every single person has a responsibility and something to be involved in. And then there's the philosophy of TQM is prevention, not detection. So if you've got a streamlined total quality management, plan and process and system, you should be able to understand a problem before it even happens, really. Or if a problem does happen, you should be able to see whereabouts within, the say the customer journey that problems happen, so that can be brought out. You can go through some problem solving techniques and think of different decision making methods to come to the best formed decision, or best informed decision, in that aspect. And then the standard, so it's getting it right the first time, because if you've got something to measure that against. And then control, so controlling like the how much it's going to cost for the quality to be streamlined. And then the theme is that it is an ongoing continuous improvement methodology. And talking about methodologies, that leads me nicely on to the next slide, which looks at Lean and Six Sigma. Now, we've just spoke about Lean and Six Sigma in general terms then, and most people might understand or might have heard of it in the past. Lean and Six Sigma are business improvement methodologies, but they do differ significantly. These differences are well documented in a number of different research papers, but I did find this diagram and I thought it categorises it quite well. In simple terms, Lean is more than just about reducing and eliminating process waste. It is a philosophy that can be applied continuously for years, if not decades. Toyota was the leader in this philosophy, which is still highly, highly relevant today. In contrast, Six Sigma concentrates on the reduction and elimination of problems. So then problems which could manifest themselves in the form of defects or variations. The Six Sigma approach tends to be much more finite than Lean, and mostly lasts weeks to months. So just a couple of, before we move on to, one of the last slides, I want to just point out that there are tools and techniques that can be utilized when wanting to work within the different improvement methodologies. So DMARC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And that methodology is used when an existing process is not meeting expectations. So there are more and more techniques, but the process steps define the customer. They're critical to control issues and the core business process involved. There's also something called DMADV, which is define, measure, analyze, and verify. And this methodology is used when a process is not yet in existence and there's a need for it to be developed. It stands for define the project goals and internal and external customer deliverables, measure and determine the customer needs and specifications, analyze the process options to meet the customer needs, design in detail the process to meet the customer needs, and then verify and design performance and the ability to meet the customer needs. So that using tools and techniques like this will help you to formulate some sort of quality process. So really hone into, whether you want to follow the Lean or the Six Sigma methodology, really research on what tools and techniques are available. And finally, I just want to point to a couple of different standards and look at the evolution of quality management certification systems and leave this with you really. Now, depending on industry, you might conform to this standard or that standard or this one or that one. And it's important to really understand where your standards, regulations, legislation stems from. So if you're doing something like completing a risk assessment on something or completing something as part of the quality process, but you don't understand why, have a good look into where, what standards they fall within, or why or try to understand why you're actually doing that and what part of the quality process you're actually working within. So that concludes my brief introduction on quality management. I hope that this has helped you to understand, why it's important in organisations and why it's important for everybody to understand quality management process as not just a process or a system, but as as a methodology and an approach to being successful. As always, my details are on the screen if you would like to drop me an email and you have any questions. But for now, thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.